It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. My first guest is Terry Crews. As a linebacker out of Flint, Michigan, Terry Crews was picked by the Los Angeles Rams in the 11th round of the 1991 NFL Draft. In 1996, it's 5 years later, he played his last season with the Eagles. Then he took up acting. He ended up starring alongside Ice Cube in The Friday After Next. He played Chris Rock's dad on Everybody Hates Chris. Now he plays Sergeant Jeffords on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, one of my favorite sitcoms. His latest role is in Sandy Wexler, the new Adam Sandler comedy on Netflix. He plays a pro wrestler named Bedtime Bobby Barnes. He's a client of Sandler's character, Sandy Wexler, who's a showbiz manager. In this scene, he's signing autographs at a wrestling convention when Sandy stops by for a visit.
You're the man, Bedtime.
Isn't he?
Oh, I know you're going to take the title on Sunday.
I'm gonna make him go night-night.
Ha ha! Thank you.
I'm gonna lose.
You don't know that. Hang on, please.
Yeah, I do know that. I got the script. Tsunami sits on my face until I tap out. I'm never gonna be the champ.
Okay, look. The good thing is, you're gonna have a grown man sit on your face, and the entire world is gonna be watching. That's a positive.
That's not a positive.
It's a positive.
Terry Crews, welcome back to Bullseye. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
It's really nice to see you again. I've never met Adam Sandler, but everyone I know who knows Adam Sandler really likes him. As an enormous Pacific Islander guy's butt approached your face, did you consider whether there was a length to which you would not go on behalf of Adam Sandler?
I have no problem going all the way in. If he had to do it, I would have endured it and done it. Because I have to say, acting is a little bit like travel. When you're in another country, you do things that you wouldn't do at home. There are things that you go, oh yeah, I'll eat that bug if I'm in Africa and I'm walking around. Hey, yeah, they're like, this is the native food. This is what you do. Now at home, you would be like, that's unthinkable. With movies, you're not you. So for me, it's kind of an escape. I mean, I've done a lot of things that I would normally not do, but
I feel like one of the marks of your work is the extent to which you will commit to something.
I don't have any other speed. I'm either all in or I'm asleep. And it's something I kind of learned in the NFL. Because it's the way to deal with fear. It's the way to deal with any apprehension. It's kind of like, I don't like to dip my toe in because then I just won't go. It's either dive in. I remember, when you're a special team player and you got to run 60 yards full speed into the biggest men you've ever seen, a wall of manhood, and you have to slam your head into that. If you break down, you're just going to run into the locker room. Like there's no, you have to just go. And my big ability, even in the NFL, was just taking tremendous amounts of pain. So when I looked at acting, it was a way of defeating any sort of apprehension. It's a way of just go so far in that you get lost. And I kind of find that's the trick with everything for me, is to really, there are times when I'm like, okay, I'm going to clean this kitchen. Oh my God, this kitchen is awesome. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's all these dishes everywhere. But all of a sudden, once I focus and just go in, like really say, okay, how clean can I make this kitchen? I mean, my wife is like, you're a bit obsessive compulsive about everything like that. But I don't have any other way. Because if I was going to halfway do it, I would just feel like I'm going to quit. And so it's always like all in or nothing.
When you were in college, were you thinking about yourself as a career football player, as somebody who was going to become an NFL player?
Not at all. I mean, well, no, I knew I was going to play in the NFL, but football was not an end for me. It was always a means. Like I had other plans. Even while I was playing in the NFL, I shot a movie. And it was terrible, and we were kicked out of locations, and it was a wild experience, but I loved every second.
When you were here last, we talked a little bit about when you were playing in the NFL, and one of the things that you said to me was that you felt like, with the possible exception of some quarterbacks, every player in the NFL was in some way broken.
Yes.
like emotionally broken.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder if you can play and succeed in the NFL without it being your entire world. I mean, it's such an insane thing, an amazing thing too.
Yeah, right.
But an insane thing. Like, can you have one foot out of it while you're doing it?
Well, see, this is once I got out and looked back in hindsight, this is why I wasn't a major star, because it wasn't the end for me. And I was good enough, but I wasn't really willing to do everything it took to be at the top. I mean, I didn't care enough. Like, you know what I mean? You really have, like, now, let me tell you something. The reason why I'm a successful actor right now is because I care. Like, I'm willing to go there.
Well, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Everybody who plays professional sports, or I should say 90% of the people who play professional sports, have to deal with something that is so bonkers to me. When you become a professional athlete, you have dedicated a huge chunk of your life to this sport, all the way into your early 20s and into your adulthood.
Yeah.
And when you enter the NBA or the NFL or minor league baseball, you realize that everybody else is better than you.
Yes, yes.
And I wonder what that was like for you, because, you know, to get drafted into the NFL, you have to be a star in college.
Right.
But you were drafted in the 11th round, is that right?
I was in the 11th round. Now, see, it was different for me. I had a different experience where, you know, I wasn't expected to make it. It was when is he going to get cut kind of question. And I stayed around. And I remember seeing guys from SC and Notre Dame, and they would get their hearts broken because someone would tell them, you're not as good as you think you are. Where everything for me was a bonus. You got to understand, like, my whole life I'm in bonus points, like right now. Like, Flint, Michigan, coming from Flint, most of my friends are living lives that are way less than what they thought they would be living. Or there are a lot of people who I knew were in jail, and a lot of people who are dead. And the expectations are very, very low. So when here I am, you know, household name, people, you know, it's worldwide, I go everywhere in the world, people know who I am. And my thing is, it's always been, wow, look at where I am right now.
So what was it like for you, Terry, when you were, you know, you had always had music and art were huge parts of your life from when you were a kid. But driving yourself hard enough to be an NFL player and to be a marginal NFL player, you know, to be the kind of guy who could get cut, who always has to be looking over his shoulder because he might get cut. When it ended up happening, when it became permanent and you realized you weren't going to play in the NFL again, what was it like to you to lose all of that stuff that you had been driving towards and all that stuff that, you know, to some extent you had bought into in order to get to do that? What was your life like? Major
Depression. You know, even on the bottom of the roster, you have some glory. You know, you can go places. And
you can go somewhere and say, sir, I'm an NFL football player.
Yeah, and everybody was, oh, and they look at you and respect you.
Terry, you're the only NFL football player I've ever met.
You know what I mean?
And so it's
like, hey, you know, but then I couldn't say that anymore. I'm going to give you one of the biggest examples. It was crazy. I went to a gym, and I was like, I'm going to work out here. And they were like, okay, all right, that'll be $25 a month. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to work out here. And they were like, okay, that'll be $25 a month. And I was like, I've never paid to work out ever. They were like, well, welcome to the real world, Mr. Cruz. It's $25 a month. And I was like, oh, damn. And it hit me like solid that you are no longer that. And I remember just being totally depressed, totally down in the dumps, because you don't have that anymore. And you don't know if you're ever going to get anything that fulfills that space.
Well, because it's I've never done anything in my entire life that's nearly as difficult as 1 week of playing in the NFL. And I've never done anything that asks that much of me.
Right.
And when nothing is asking that much of you, and you're the kind of guy that you are, I mean, you're that kind of guy that throws so much into everything, not to have something to throw it into must have been a big deal.
Well, I actually was telling my wife I want to get into boxing. And she was like, okay, you survived one thing. And I just remember getting overweight, watching a lot of TV, eating a lot of snacks at night because it was emotional, very, very emotional. And one day, my wife pinched my back fat. And I was like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? She's like, it's cute. I'm just like, what? I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Because in your mind, you think you're the same guy, but you're slowly losing control of your life. And I remember just hearing a tape where it said, if you do something straight for 21 days, you'll gain the habit. And so I decided to go to the gym for 21 days and stop eating late at night for 21 days. And that turned into 18 years. And I never stopped.
It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. My guest, Terry Crews. His latest movie, Sandy Wexler, is on Netflix now. He also stars on Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Fox. How comfortable are you with getting older?
I'm very comfortable with it.
You're in your late 40s now.
I'll be 49 this year.
At some point, your hormones start to change, and you probably will be at the very least, less of a muscle man. And I can say, you're sitting across from me. At the moment, you are definitely a muscle man. 100% muscle man over there.
It's more important to me that I be in shape mentally. It just is. Now, I've never stopped being an athlete because it's fun. And for one, I get renewed energy from the workouts. Like, for me, my workouts are more spiritual than they are physical because it gets me in the right tone for the day. I have so much energy. I have to tell you, I have to burn off 2 hours and then I can start a regular day. To me, and another thing is I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not a guy who's like, okay, I'm gonna get these arms right. I'm more so, I have to get my body ready for my job, for what I do. And this is as a performer. I realized to be really, really successful, I had to get my endurance up to where I could do 3 jobs at the same time.
Do you have to, or have you had to adjust that impulse to acknowledge the fact that you've got a big family and that, working provides for that family financially, but it doesn't provide for that family in other ways?
Well, yeah, but again, I approach my family as if it was another gig. You know what I mean? Because you have to include all of that into the mix, because if you leave that, you're really going to be messed up. And I did that before, where family was just an okay thing, and they're going to get with it. And while I chase my dream.
When was that?
This was, oh my God, this was pretty much from football right into the early days of entertainment. And this is when my marriage pretty much broke up because I was not paying attention to how I was treating my family, to my wife, to my kids. In fact, I say this all the time, but I was a guy who felt like he was more valuable than his wife and kids. I was totally like, look, in my house, it was the trickle-down theory. But the thing is, nothing really ever trickled down. It was just more of me. And my wife was like, I've had it. That's enough. I'm done. And all of a sudden, it hit me that was like, yo, man, maybe it's me. Because I could easily blame her and say, oh, you just don't understand me. You don't understand men. You don't understand what it is. But I said, maybe it is me. And that's when I had to stop the career and focus on the family.
It seems like this is a continuing process for you. I mean, a year or so ago, you talked a lot publicly about being addicted to pornography, going into rehab. That's something that obviously can affect your family.
Oh, yeah, big time. And it was kind of a thing where, you got to look at cause and effect. You know what I mean? And a lot of times we're dealing only with effects. But I realized that, pornography wasn't the problem. It was the effect of a deeper issue. You know what I mean? And it was like, hey, man, when you believe as a man that you are more valuable than women, it affects the way you think about it. You just look at things as they're just property. I remember being in the NFL and they would, we would all go to strip club and all this whole thing. But if a stripper ever started talking about her kids or her life, I got bills, it's like, oh man, babe, please, quiet, because you know what? Because she's starting to become a real person. You don't want a human being. You want something that you can manipulate and you can control. And that's what pornography was. For me, it fulfilled that. Like, okay, yeah, I can do that and whatever. But all of a sudden, I could see how people had less value to me. It was affecting the way I saw everyone. And I said, this is a problem. Believe you me, I've been in intense therapy, going through it, and still constantly figuring out, opening up what makes me tick.
When I read about your pornography addiction, the thing that I wondered about was so much of your work is about your body. Like, you are by far the world's preeminent comic nipple dancer.
Peck popping is now family entertainment.
Yeah. And all of those things take immense talent and skill, which you have. I mean, there's a lot of guys with muscles who aren't on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, one of the funniest shows on TV. But your work it remains essentially in part about your body. And I wonder how you dealt with those feelings of, like, on the one hand, I am trying to deal with engaging with people as people and not as objects. Mm-hmm. And realizing that part of your work was as an object in part.
Well, that's a good question too, because I had to ask myself that. But what I think is the breakthrough, and it's really, really wild. It's like kind of like that stripper analogy I told you about. Nudity is not pornography. But pornography is when you take the humanity out of something. Now, the good thing is, me being Terry Crews and being characters, it's that I always get to display my humanity. You know what I mean? I'm peck popping and the whole thing, but you know that I'm a human being. And you know that I'm emotional, I have feelings, I'm a person. And that's kind of how I tested a lot of different roles that came to me. There were different things where, after I did the movie White Chicks, there were plenty of movies that came to me. They were like, "Oh man, we want to have you in this. And you're in the bed with this girl," and I was like, "No," because you could see some guy over there going, "I don't want to see that," and you're like, "Dude, that's I'm an object there." You know what I mean? And I turned down plenty of roles. A lot of people say, "Oh, Terry Crews does it all." No, you should see what I turned down. There was tons of stuff I turned down. There's ways to tell all kind of stories, ways to do everything without it being exploitative. As soon as people stop being human, you have a problem. And my job as an actor and as a performer is to project humanity and to show you sides of humanity.
Have you ever seen the movie Little Dieter Needs to Fly, the Werner Herzog documentary?
I did. No, I didn't.
Okay, it's a really amazing movie. I recommend it. It's been on my mind since I watched it on an airplane like 6 months ago.
Okay.
It's about this German-American pilot who flew in the Vietnam War and was shot down and became a prisoner of war. And that's Dieter, the little Dieter who needs to fly. And he went through a nightmarish prisoner of war scenario, more nightmarish than you could possibly imagine. And he, in the film, which was made in the 90s, they shoot in his house in Marin County, and he's talking to Werner Herzog. And, he's a beautiful house, and he when he returned home, he was a hero, and, he's had a successful career and so on and so forth. But he lifts up the floorboards of his kitchen and shows that he has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food underneath the floor of his house because he simply cannot go to sleep without knowing that he will have food.
Wow.
Because of this experience that he went through.
Wow.
I wonder if a part of your drive is something like that it is about distinguishing yourself and earning a living for your family because of the pain that you went through as a kid.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And again, it goes back to cause and effect. I've never been more helpless than watching my dad, with all his strength, hit my mother in the face. And I'm 5. And you want to protect her. You want to jump in. But what are you going to do? This is a grown man. And and not only that, he's like the example of all strength. He's basically God in your house. And you see your mother go down and you don't know what to do. I remember there was one, when they were fighting one time, I remember I started to laugh. Now that's weird. And I felt guilty for laughing. But it was all, you don't know why you do what you do. And I think it's really weird because, and again, as people, we tend to only deal with effects. We only talk about where you are now, but there's always a reason. There's always something really, really deep. There's abuse there. There's all this damage there. And I truly believe there's 3 things that really make you who you are. One is heredity. The other is environment. But the third and most important is a decision. And you can't do anything about the first 2. But that decision, man, when I discovered that magical thing, like, okay, I was born here, but I don't have to live here. And the decision to not have these things affect me, the decision to forgive. I mean, I had to forgive my dad. I had to come up. I mean, now this being said, I also knocked him out. I mean, me and him had a come to Jesus meeting for real. He hit my mother one more time, but I was a grown man. And I beat his ass. And it did no good. When I tell you, I remember just sitting down and crying. Because I thought that was going to make me feel better. I thought, here I am. This is the moment. I can protect her. I can do this. And he was beat up. And I didn't feel not one bit better. But then years later, I literally met with him. And I remember saying, I have to get over this. I have to forgive this man. And the best thing I could think about, like, you start thinking about ways to forgive and how you're going to do it. And I said, wait a minute, okay, what good thing did he do for me? I said, you know what? Without you, I would not exist. That's the good thing that you did for me. And I said, in fact, the truth is, if I had to choose my parents, I would choose you because I wouldn't be here. And he broke down and we had the biggest hug. I mean, it was a little, like a 10-minute hug. And let me tell you, that hug did more than anything. It did more for our relationship than any other thing that had ever occurred in my whole life.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for taking all this time to come be here.
This is good. This is part of my therapy, man. Just talking. It's weird because you look back and go, oh, wow, that's good. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm always grateful to get to see you. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Terry Crews. Check him out in Adam Sandler's new film, Sandy Wexler, on Netflix. And also, we got the news earlier this month, Brooklyn Nine-Nine coming back for a 5th season on Fox. Very excited about that. One of my favorite shows.